Okay,
song.
so intro time. Arcaladon gone. Barrascuda down to RU for the third time.
That's fitting. So,
Yeah, that's
same
the
main
Barrascuda.
same main host last time. Do we need to reintroduce ourselves? I don't think. I mean, that was episode 0. So
I don't think we do.
Yeah.
I mean, what if someone like comes in for the first time on episode 1?
Well,
Which-
they should watch episode 0 then, shouldn't they? What are they doing?
It would make sense if someone came in episode 1.
No, it doesn't make sense. Shut up.
Whatever makes you feel good, little bro.
Dang.
So, the guest for this week is Ausma. Can one of you introduce Ausma? Because I think they're like a tier leader.
Yeah, no,
I am not the tier leader now.
not tier leader, but OU council member. She is
That's
very
the one.
active in the community. Is probably the second most influential player at the moment.
Behind Finch.
Thank you.
So today we are gonna talk about bans. So Cbutty's gonna feel real lonely.
Yeah, welcome to the 3 singles players and a VGC player podcast.
Yeah, this is your time to say ooh and ah.
Ooh.
You know, I mean, this is balance. I hear episode 0 was apparently very skewed toward VGCs, so you know,
Yeah.
the universe balances somehow.
Alright, so first thing we kind of want to talk about is, so we know how in singles, when it's banning something, it's either a quick ban or a suspect. How do you decide which one to opt for? Like if you do a quick ban or if you go for a suspect, and is like tiering survey results the only metric you go by, or what else does it
All right.
go into play?
So frankly, it is kind of just like dependent on what the Pokemon is and how it's trending. Usually, however, there is usually a trend toward doing quick bans earlier in like a generation or a generational phase. Like for example, there were like quick bans employed for the Teal Mask metagame and the Indigo Disc metagame. And so, yeah, tiering surveys are a very huge metric that help inform and ground our decision. But sometimes there have been cases that that where the OU Council does opt to do an internal vote instead, based on how I guess pressing it is, or how whether or not we think a suspect would be even necessary, or if we just think that it would be a better idea to just kind of get it out of the way. So for example with sleep is kind of hard to suspect, especially because it was a very cyclical discussion. So that was something we did opt to vote on, and it was I believe it was a unanimous vote. And then there was also a case where like Volcarona was extremely oppressive in the post-home metagame. And even though many people, it was a very controversial decision, a lot of people felt that it was very hasty. And, you know, I do think maybe it could have been handled a little more tactfully. I agree.
As an outside player, as like an outside view, I will say, because I don't know much about OU, the Volcarona ban did kind of just come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, Volcarona's always been a presence that's sparked controversy ever since it was introduced, right?
I guess that's what happens when you can like not be a bug type anymore.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like Volcarona is arguably one of like the best benefactors of Tera. Like not just because of the fact it can just get rid of its quad weakness and a lot of its common weaknesses in general, but also because it could just have random coverage. Like it is also arguably one of the best users of Terra Blast, if not the best.
It can beat things like Heat Train that it normally wouldn't be able to beat before.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's like
It can
80%
also be-
of the Terra Blast usage know you.
I'd also say that some very other popular types. The other main Terra Blast type is Dragon, which is actually kind of interesting because a lot of people Terra Blast Dragon doesn't seem like something you'd really want to do very much, but there are a lot of really strong dragon types in OU that are like very potent right now. You have things like Gouging Fire, which a quad resists Volcarona's Fire Stab, and you also have Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt's another pretty big one.
Don't both of these just get thwonked by Terra Blast Ground though?
Yeah, but Dragon also gives you defensive benefits.
Yeah,
it turns Wellspring into a setup opportunity.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's why Volcarona runs Terra Dragon in VGC. It doesn't run Terra Blast. It runs Heat Wave and Giga Drain with Quiver Dance and Protect, but it usually runs Terra Dragon as a defensive Terra.
Yeah.
Someone once told me that Volcarona ran Specs in VGC. Is that true?
No, that is not true.
Volcarona
has two sets in VGC.
In Gen 7, I got cooked by a Specs Volcarona on ladder one time. It crushed my soul.
Honestly,
the mid-ladder experience.
It is literally the ladder experience. I mean, honestly, I feel like I've kind of created infamy for myself in being like one of the biggest like haters of Terra Blast. And I feel like that hate has just come from being randomly just constantly destroyed by the most random Terra Blasts, like from things that you would not expect. Like, I think maybe one of my like worst like traumatic memories with Terra Blast is running into a cloister with electric Terra Blast. That was a time.
The ADV OU is so funny because you literally do worse on mid ladder when you don't watch Jimothy Cool. Because mid ladder is just dictated by whatever his latest video is.
Going off of the Terra discussion, Terra is much different in VGC because in OU it's much more of an offensive tool, isn't it?
It's like a mix between the two.
I would say
you usually use it defensively, but to gain opportunities for offensive mons.
Yeah,
because in VGC, it's much more a defensive thing. Like a Moongus will run Terra Fairy, or Caladon runs Terra Fairy, or Iron Hands would run Terra Grass. Whereas we're not safe from weird terastalizations either. So like you may have heard of the player Jamie Boyd. At Liverpool Regionals, he brought a Terra Electric Terra Blast Assault Vest Chenpao.
Well, that's very Jamie Boyd. That's a very Jamie Boyd thing to do.
For context, for the singles players who are watching this, Chenpao only runs Terra Ghost to avoid its focus sesh being broken by Fake Out.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, in general, I've also, like, seen a lot of... I mean, again, I'm not, like, a VGC player very much, so take my, like, observation with a grain of salt, but, like, Terra Grass is super popular to, like, get, like, a Rage Powder immunity, right?
Yeah.
Well, the most common Terra in VGC right now has moved away from Terra Grass and moved more towards Terra Fairy, mainly because Urshifu Dark is insane.
Yeah. That sounds right.
In doubles, you can run into weird ass Terras, though you have open team sheets, so like it's a little
the random ones are more common in closed team sheets.
Yeah, that's another example.
That's something a lot of VGC players tell me that singles should implement open team sheets. I don't know. I wouldn't really like that.
No, I will definitely say that like it's interesting because Terra
you cut off for me. Could you repeat that about single strike?
Wait, what?
Is it Silver? You said something about single strike, but you kind of cut off for me for the entire sentence.
Not single strike. I said open team sheet.
Oh.
Yeah.
I said that's something that VGC players often tell me, that singles should have open team sheet, but I don't know. I wouldn't really like that.
I once hosted a tournament in my Discord server that Silver was in it too, which it was just like singles with open team sheets. There were like 30 entries. It was pretty small, but like I don't think there's a single player in there that like got at least a reasonable amount of singles games in. that
I have a question.
that like the thing. I think everyone agreed on the fact that it was a detrimental addition.
Yeah, I mean, like from the
Ausma, I
sound.
have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
So I know you get a lot of complaints from people saying like, "Oh, you should ban terastallization." Wouldn't
I
that
agree.
be fixed by having open Terra?
No.
Okay, so. Yeah, okay, so I can actually have a. This is actually a very interesting. That's a very good question, and it is actually something I hear a lot, and I mean, ironically, from VGC players too. But the thing about open team sheets is, I think actually, I don't really think that that having like open Terra and knowing what your opponent's Terras are really would do much, because a lot of what people argue about regarding Terra in singles is it is like, as stated, it is a lot more of an offensive tool in the sense that you use Terra is almost like a balance between offense and defense, but which is that's like common anyway.
Yeah.
But like the thing is, a lot of Terras are often used to complement an offensive profile or to enhance their defensive profile such that they are able to force setup opportunities that you can't really do too much about. So again, you have stuff like Volcarona with Terra Dragon that's takes heavy advantage of like Ogerpon Wellspring, for example.
Yeah, it's like that in VGC as well.
And then exactly. But the thing is, I personally think that having Terra open Terra sheets would actually just create more guessing games than actual that would act. And in practice, I feel like it wouldn't really address the core issues of Terra because of how it is a bit more offensively skewed in singles.
Wouldn't you have to guess if they're even going to Terra or not at that point?
Yeah, because
I mean, basically,
figuring out what Terra your opponent has depending on their team is a big factor of why Terra actually is a skillful mechanic in some aspects. And removing that would only make every turn be a 50-50 of whether your opponent is going to Terra or not.
Yeah, I think the fact that you don't actually know what their Terra is 100% actually does influence whether or not you decide to Terra in that turn. Whether you think maybe there'd be a more overall stronger payoff to using a different Terra later in the game, or using it earlier on to force an advantage. It's I do think that open Terra sheets would kind of mitigate that a good deal, especially more aggressive Terras, or more. It would definitely just kind of create a lot of footsies style situations where since you know what they're actually going to be using, unlike VGC, games in singles can have a large variance of turns. They could be super long, they could be short, they can kind of be middle of the road. It really comes down to
it's kind of like that in VGC. That stall teams exist in VGC.
Yeah, but
I'm aware, but aren't they
stall teams in
bad?
VGC are people using Iron Defense Body Press and calling it stalled because you're spending a turn setting up.
Well, no,
isn't it like Iron Defense Amnesia Registeel?
That was a thing, but right now the most common Iron Defense Body Press Pokemon is Kommo-o on a team that has Kommo-o, Tinglu, Porygon 2, Amoonguss, Incineroar, and Goldengo.
That's cool.
Sounded like you said Spearow for a second.
No.
Yeah, but
Spearow Stall, the new RTM of the week.
Thing is, in VGC, short games are 5 turns and long games are 20 to 25 turns. In singles, short games in singles are 8 turns. Long games are 200. So it's.
I'll be honest, even 8 is a generous metric for short games. I would actually say
long
short games can
just called GSC.
The people on mid ladder who forfeit when you kill their mon.
GSCOU is not contrary to popular belief, it is not a stall gen.
It's not a stall gen. So it is filled with offense, right? But some mechanics of it, even if they don't make it more defensive, objectively make it slower. Because yes,
but yeah.
Maxed out, it's maxed out DVs and leftovers on everything, and sleep talk being able to call rest just naturally makes it slower. Like,
Yeah.
even though it isn't stall, it does make things slower. And
Yeah, and it does,
if
and
we-
that's true. But slower doesn't mean
Lower doesn't mean more defensive.
Yeah,
objectively.
exactly.
Makes
Just
sense.
means offense is a little bit more, I guess, like has it's
Bulky
just more of a
offense.
long-term, more of like a long-term offensive game plan, which again, that's actually common in like more modern gens too. Like there are like bulky offense kind of structures that kind of try to make progress incrementally through like status, through like things like knockoff,
That's called
hazards.
Dondoza, right?
I think a lot of newer players kind of forget about that because, like, you see a lot of hyper offense on ladder because people are trying to win games fast.
Yep, and you can
Yeah.
because there's so many like booster energy mons and a lot of like really powerful, so much like offensive saturation that that's really hard to realistically be able to check like everything, you know?
Yeah.
Which in
It's
turn
worse
is
than- that's
in turn
actually
is also
kinda
why you
similar
see a lot
to
of
ADV.
yeah. In turn is also why you see a lot of stall, because if you want to check everything, you have to use stall. So
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
kind of like ADV because, like, in the Gen 3 ladder, you see a very surprising amount of Magneton offense, despite it not really being good for tournaments because it's so easy to break, but it's so good for getting games fast on ladder.
yeah,
so,
like
yeah.
the more,
I mean, like,
the better HO is on ladder is also like probably the most ladder to tournament meta difference is going to be
Yeah.
to be. It's like,
there are
this is
strategies
probably-
that
yeah.
that definitely thrive on that definitely thrive off of just kind of being on ladder as opposed to like I mean a pretty big and actually this is relevant to the ban discussion. King's Rock Cloister was a very big thing back in Gen 8. It actually single-handedly put like King's Rock into the limelight as in the and there was a huge dialogue about how if the item was uncompetitive or if it was just a cheese strategy. But on ladder, cheese strategies tend to have more payoff because it's easier to get a larger sample size of games where those strategies kind of like accumulate statistically and pay off, whereas in tournament gameplay it's like there's more nuance to whether or not cheese RNG oriented strategies will actually have that payoff when the sample size is not only lower, but it's also, there's more preparation and more contingencies.
There's also
That's
more
it.
at stake.
Yeah. Like
ADP
basically-
Revival actually straight up banned accuracy lowering moves in, like, Confuse Ray.
Good.
Just because of that, because they didn't want anyone losing because of, like, some janky sand attack strat.
Yeah, basically ladder encourages matchup fishing.
Yep. That's just how it is. I mean, like, and that's like how it is in any gen, I'd argue. But it's definitely bigger. It's definitely more of a factor when there's more offensive polarity and just generally more Pokemon to account for defensively. And it's why Pokemon, and it's especially why Volcarona has been so oppressive in Generation 9, because it's so easy to have to fish for way more matchups than Volcarona was able to do in the past. And because of that, it's a lot easier to just kind of like handpick your checks even more than it ever could, and just kind of fish for those matchups more deliberately.
Thing is, a lot of people, it seems to me, are arguing in favor of broken checks broken recently, because people are like, we've banned so much stuff, just let the meta evolve. But like that,
Yeah,
It's
I
like
don't
the
know.
We're gonna see everyone's
That reminds
like,
me.
first, like, yeah.
To
That
me, they're
reminds me.
broken in different ways. So it's like they wouldn't mesh well.
Yeah,
That-
and also, I think it's just such a like disingenuous feeling argument, because there's a reason why broken checking broken has always been just like a sort of like really awkward fallacy in tiering discussion. Like you said, like different Pokemon are broken in different ways. That's an excellent point. But on top of that, you also have to consider that when there's more brokenness, there is going to be more ways for these Pokemon in practice to actually,
Get out of control.
fish for fish for those different matchups, and it's more difficult when there's so much. Because when you have broken checking broken, you create offensive saturation. That's just how it is. You're gonna have more broken Pokemon to account for, and when you have more broken Pokemon to account for, it creates inherently a more matchup fishing metagame. Whether you think that's the case or not, there are players who are very well known in the community who think broken checking broken should be embraced, which I think is a very in my opinion anyway. I respect that opinion kinda, but I think it's very irresponsible. It's a very irresponsible rhetoric when broken checking broken just creates polarity and offensive saturation. And obviously
broken checks broken does remind me of something I wanted to ask.
You're really muffled.
Yeah.
Am I?
You're kind of lagging.
The connection's being weird.
Yeah.
You're good.
Broken checking broken does remind me. My friend wanted me to ask this question. Shout out to Poganet, by the way. So when the whole Gliscor thing was going on, why ban Gliscor and not Golden Go? Because from what we heard, it was Golden Go who was enabling it all.
No, I wouldn't really say it was Goldengo. I can understand why people thought it was Goldengo, but the thing about Gliscor is that Gliscor is such an optimized Pokemon to take advantage of spike stacking in the context of Generation 9 that it's there are several things about Gliscor as a spike setter that make it very functionally distinct from other spike stacking Pokemon like Hisuian Samurott or what's another example that comes to mind? Tinglu. And it's the fact that making progress against Gliscor was not very feasible in the Teal Mass metagame. It very much so encouraged having to run very janky coverage options so you could actually overwhelm it. Because realistically speaking, the thing about Gliscor is making progress against it is in the Teal Mass metagame was very, very impractical. For the most part, it was very. You can't status it. You can't really knock it off once the Toxic Orb activates.
Didn't
whereas with
people run Pecha Berry Trick Golden Go?
No, that was
not.
That was one
that was
meme.
a meme.
That was not real.
Oh,
yeah, nobody actually did that. That was just a meme.
Someone DM'd me one time asking me if they should use it.
No,
you should have said yes, just to let them find out.
Oh, I did. I said yes just to see if they would run it.
Now, something that people did run because of Gliscor was Tera Ice Tera Blast on a lot of different Pokemon, namely Cinderace. Cinderace was a really popular Tera Ice Tera Blast user.
That makes sense.
And yeah, I mean, in my opinion, if even though I'm starting to kind of starting to think more critically about my stance on Tera Blast as of the past week or two, I do personally think that if Tera Blast is increased in usage because of the existing presence of a Pokemon, that is generally a sign that their defensive presence is questionable. Because of how it
you have to go out of your way to
you can't use general progress making options, which is the huge reason why I think Goldengo would be the incorrect target in that context, because before Gliscor existed, Goldengo was very, very good, and it still is very, very good. But the Pokemon that actually paired with for spike stacking were able to be realistically beaten in the long term. You could use progress; you didn't have to go too out of your way to do it. And even though spikes were and are still pretty oppressive, Gliscor was just it was basically impossible to outlast Gliscor with your removal, and it was just able to win the war of attrition. Screw
Tetra Berry Trick Goldengo. I ran I ran a Worry Seed, Strength Sap, Victory Bell.
Oh, that's good. Well put. I applaud that.
I ran it on a in the Teal Mass metagame. I ran like this weird Sun balance team with like Rest Hawk, Torkoal.
Amazing.
It wasn't super good, but it was fun.
I mean, that's what
Yeah,
counts
and
sometimes. I think.
And you loved going around DMing people that said, didn't you?
I mean, I think it's great. I mean, that's another reason why I actually like Tera as a mechanic. I do think it's a very organic way to encourage team builder diversity, and I think it's a very good way to address oppression, offensive like oppression that you can't really super feasibly deal with, without shivving your core synergies. You could just put on a good Tera type for a few of your Pokemon to deal with a particularly egregious threat that you don't have a super stable game plan against, and it doesn't really require too heavy of a sacrifice in really any way, unless it's like a Pokemon that really relies on a certain Tera type, which isn't really too common, to be honest. And because if a Pokemon is reliant on Tera or a Tera type to do well, they just aren't really all that good to begin with.
Unless
So-
the mon's name is Garganical.
Even Garganacl isn't really much of a Terra Sync. Like, I think its base rock type is, and because of the ghost
Jackal?
resistance, is actually like is not like even too terrible. Like, you're still able to check stuff like Gouging Fire, that doesn't run like Earthquake or like Raging Bolt. Granted, it obviously will want to Terra most of the time, but it isn't like as much of a Terra Sync as people might have you believe. It's just a very resilient Pokemon. Its ability is broken. Its stats are extremely good. It's got recovery. You can't status it. Like, it's
Fair
just got the
enough.
fundamentals to be like a very resilient Pokemon, even without Terra.
I hate Game Freak. Why did they just give us Regirock but better, but just never buff Regirock?
Regirock's funnier
That's
though.
not
Regirock
true.
says,
They give
why don't
Regirock body press. They did.
I unironically think the Reggie should get recover, like all of them. I don't
Yeah.
know
Like
why
they
don't.
should. They should. Regice needs freeze dry. It needs Calm Mind. Like it looks like
Regice
a Calm Mind
needs
coded
anything.
Pokemon.
You freaking
Like,
Regice.
Regice isn't even good in Sword and Shield ZU.
That's tragic. Honestly, I honestly think Regice with like recover like in CM could actually be a really interesting win condition. honestly.
Regice isn't even the best ice type Reggie.
It's
True,
not.
that's Regieleki.
That's tragic.
Shoutouts to Regieleki outspeeding +1 Valiant with max speed.
The fact that Regieleki is the fastest Pokemon in the game now instead of Deoxys speed feels like criminal.
It feels wrong.
I don't know.
You're outspinning the mon with speed in its name.
Yeah, come on. That's ridiculous. I mean, granted, I guess this timeline is better than the one where we had 200 offenses, Reggies. That would be a lot more worrisome, I think.
That would be very funny.
It
They
would.
nerfed Transistor, but they didn't nerf Dragon Small.
Yeah, I
Yet
mean-
they
I'm so
nerfed
happy
Dauntless
about that,
Shield.
by the way.
Regidrago
That
Yeah,
that
practically
nerf
has
made
200
Regidrago
basic attack.
actually good in VGC.
That's crazy.
Regidrago?
Yeah, because its signature move is spread. It's like just a. It's
Oh,
an
it is a
option
spread
for-
move. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just Dragon type Eruption.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, yeah. I forgot about that. Wow. Neat.
I used it to like burn through the battle tower in Sword and Shield.
Yeah, Regidrago was like genuinely good in the last season of VGC, like the one before this one, the last format.
Good for Regidrago, honestly.
Which is crazy. It's
Yeah.
kind of crazy to see how like last gen you saw Regieleki being this monster in VGC, and then just one gen later completely switched roles with Regidrago.
Yeah, it's weird. Actually, that's actually so weird to me. Was the Transistor nerf that
And no, it
ruinous
wasn't
to
even-
where
it-
even...
It wasn't even the transistor nerf as far as
Well-
I'm aware. It was like mostly just Tailwind's popularity because it doesn't feel
Uh,
fast enough.
It wasn't just the transistor nerf. It was also that we also had faster speed control mons in the form of Iron Bundle and Speed Booster Fluttermane.
they're more splashable too, right?
Yeah.
Shoutouts to Regieleki for being lower than Articuno on the Sword and Shield UU viability rankings.
Shout out to Regieleki for making it to finals of one international championship and then never showing up ever again. It made it to finals of this year's LAIC and then no one saw it since.
Shout out for Regieleki for being the one mom people ran Trick Ring Target for.
Shoutouts to us for not even talking, for like barely talking about bans.
Oh yeah,
I mean, Regieleki was banned. Technically,
was.
Regieleki was banned in singles, so...
The fastest ban
Regieleki was
ever.
like... Hasn't Regieleki been like the fastest quick ban until Terapagos?
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Was
was
it
I think it was
30
like
hours or so.
23 hours?
I don't... Hang on, let me actually look, because I'm pretty sure Regieleki was faster, but let me, like, check
It's fitting.
that.
It would be
Yeah,
fitting,
Regieleki was absolutely, like... absolutely absurd, like actually like comically broken. I was like one of the few people who said, "Hey, maybe freeing this thing is not a very good idea." I was very vindicated with how quickly it was banned.
And then people were asking it to get unbanned after the nerf was discovered.
Nah.
Yeah, that was
Nah.
not gonna make a difference. That was
It would
never.
make zero
People were
difference.
running Scarf Dragapult of all things.
I mean, I was kind of surprised, honestly, that not that Regieleki got banned. I was surprised that Regieleki got banned before Magirna.
Well, Magirna's a bit of a
took longer
trickier.
than I thought.
Magirna's a bit of a
Regieleki-
trickier case.
Regieleki in VGC is pretty funny because it has enough speed to this is Gen 8 specifically, but it has enough speed to outspeed like every Pokemon in the format, but it would still run max speed and sometimes run Choice Scarf just to outspeed opponents' Regieleki.
I mean, it's crazy because like even if you outspeed it and electroweb it before it does its own electroweb, a lot of mons still wouldn't outspeed.
Yeah, but like a lot of games would come down to Regieleki speed ties from the first turn.
Sounds
That's very
familiar.
funny.
The only reason Deoxys Speed ran Choice Scarf in singles
What's the trick opposing
Was the
Deoxys
trick
speed?
opposing Deoxys?
Yeah, the infamous Deoxys Speed mirror in DPP is so funny.
It's so funny that that time is a flat circle because we like at the beginning of the Indigo Disc metagame when we freed Darkrai as well. We basically had like Darkrai Deoxys Speed like leads very frequently, and it was really really funny because that was a very common lead matchup in DPP Ubers too, if I recall.
Those are like the leads.
Yeah, if I recall. Like, Scarf Dark Void just for Dio, right?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
Scarf Dark Void for Dio, and
And
then
that
Dio would
Prey
sometimes
got
run
returned
Trick
speed.
Choice Scarf, and then in the event it gets outsped and hit with Superpower, Darkrai sometimes runs Sash, and it's a real 50-50.
Man, DPP
Oh,
Uber's
yeah,
lead
for
metagame
anyone
is
watching,
like an art form that
no,
needs to be
bans
like
are not
It's
good
the
for
funniest thing
different.
ever.
DPP Ubers is an art form that needs to be studied.
Oh yeah, back to bans. So,
For anyone watching,
Speaking of DPP,
for anyone who saw that-
Frostlash just got banned in DPP.
oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So moving on.
Yeah,
Yeah, just
Hey,
because
so,
For anyone-
it's
to,
like
to
Snowcloak.
anyone,
Like, Abomalast teams weren't even that good, but like I don't know, they were a pain to deal with, so it makes sense.
For anyone who clicked on the podcast for the actual title, back to bans. So, we're
so
talking about
back to
VGC.
bans.
Talking about VGC,
Yes.
you could. Well, first of all, Tera. We were talking about Tera and how Tera got it got basically Tera preview, which like how was it received as opposed to a ban? Because I know
Open.
I know at the start a lot of people didn't like open team sheet even in VGC.
I think open team sheets in VGC are a lifesaver because these tournaments are huge, and I don't want to be losing to some weird stuff like Terra Bug Golden Go.
Oh, I'd run that.
That sounds like a
Shoutouts
thing.
to Terra
People,
Roaring
someone
Riven.
despite open team sheets, someone won a tournament with Terra Psychic Tyranitar.
Oh yeah, and then
Take
like
a
for
chat.
1 week, the whole of low ladder VGC was filled with
It
terastallization
was just
Tyranitar.
filled with Terrapsychic Tyranitar with body press Karmo and Hisui and Arcanine.
What? What? What?
Yeah,
Oh.
That was the team.
What?
Welcome to VGC.
I'm sorry, Tera is just so funny as a mechanic because you could just like hear about the goofiest things, and it's like either really it makes sense, or is really funny, or is both. Like, and it's usually both. Like,
Wait
I
till
mean,
you
Terra
hear
Bug
the
Roaring Moon has
wait
become
till you hear
an infamous
Terra
has
Bug
become an
Rainbow is
infamous
the
joke
goat.
in the singles community because of the battle with Mudkip Nerd and Finchinator. Um, and the funny thing about Terra Bug
Bro
Roaring Moon
didn't
is it
bring
actually
great
like
task.
made sense. It actually kind of
Roaring Moon,
it actually
It
made
kinda
sense.
did.
See,
but,
in
like,
VGC,
it's for
Roaring
this
Moon
one
doesn't
matchup, but
run
it
Terra
was
Bug.
worth
Roaring
it,
Moon runs
technically.
Terra
It was
Flying
like
or Terra Poison.
I mean, it does run
Yeah, that's what it
Terra
does.
Flying too. Though, like in
Yeah.
VGC, I'm assuming it's mainly for defensive purpose. In singles, it's like it gets 1 DD and then acrobatics outgoes everything.
Yeah,
Acrobatic.
And it gives a fighting
that's what
resistance.
that's what it does
Yeah.
in VGC. Except the acrobatics is
And
boosted
a
by
grassy
Terra
glide
Flying.
resistance still. It keeps him a grassy glide resistance too, which is nice.
But what you want to know what you no longer resist? Kingambit Sucker Punch.
Yeah, I've seen Terra Dark.
Speaking of that, that's one of the reasons why Terra Fairy is so good on Fluttermane, because it could still get one-shot by Sucker Punch, but if you click Terra Fairy, not only are your Moonblasts becoming nukes, but you also now resist Sucker Punch from Kingambit and Jempo.
Yeah. I mean, that's like the interesting
cool.
thing about same type Terra on like mons that have two types, because you can
You
just
shed some
shed.
weaknesses.
Yeah, you can shed a weakness, or you can gain a resistance from your other type. And
Pretty much.
And I think that's especially super big with like fairy, like dual fairy Pokemon, or like dual water Pokemon.
Yeah,
as well,
one that I
I'd
found
say.
very interesting is Ogerpon Wellspring, because you'd think being locked into a Terra would make Terra less, you could say maybe reliable at flipping matchups, but like going from water grass from pure water actually completely changes your weaknesses. There is not a single weakness that you
Pretty
you
much,
kick,
yeah.
It's
which
great.
is very
I mean,
it's
like,
very very interesting.
yeah, like Terra Water Wellspring, even if it's locked to water, I mean, it would probably want to go with water anyway. I mean,
Yeah,
Ivy
water is
Cudgel has
still
no
really
switches.
good.
Like, yeah, I mean, and you get a special defense boost on top of that. Like, why not?
It's pretty crazy, yeah. And another thing I wanted to talk about VGC and bans is how do you consider Dex Cut? The Game Freak does. Do you consider that as a because you could kind of see Dex Cut as a ban for VGC, couldn't you?
Well, I want to talk about bans in VGC real quick. To anyone watching, no, bans in VGC are not a good idea. We had a format where they banned the top 20 most used Pokemon. It did not go well. It was one of the most centralized metas we've ever seen. There was like a top 6 on one team, and that was it.
Interesting.
That
But then
team
again, that's like
was...
To be
that's
fair,
like a different way of banning things.
Yeah, it is because they
It's
ban
not like
based on usage, not based on viability.
Yeah,
Like
it was based on
if we banned
usage.
based on usage and Smogon, we would have been Landorus Therian a
I mean,
long
no.
time ago.
We do ban on
The
we do
ban
ban
based on
based on
usage
usage.
thing
That's
is funny,
called
though, 'cause it
tiering.
also-
That's called OUUUPU.
But that's
I
like
think
it's a
it's
usage
funny.
and like
That's a bit
like
of
you're
an
not going to get
oversimplification.
banned from UU
It's-
just because you're
it's
used
funny
to UU.
because
you get
they-
banned
I mean,
from UU because
you
you're
could-
used to OU.
You could see it as like UU is just OU but with bans based on usage.
I
But
mean,
it's like
yeah,
it's
like
funny
usage
because
it's
they
usage
also-
in OU, not usage in UU.
They also took the usage from Battle Stadium singles, so in that top 20 that was banned, there was included Hippowdon.
Oh yeah, that's very very funny.
yeah, I mean, I will say though, regarding that comment of like bans, you could considering like the usage tiers like bans. I guess like that's technically true, but at the same time, it's like they're like I think it really puts into perspective that I guess like the philosophy of bans, quote unquote, really is just like dependent on basically like I would actually say like tiering philosophy. Like, there's a lot of different ways that you can approach tiering and how you can approach the idea of what, like, should be banned, what, like, banning should look like. I mean, like, there's a lot of, like, discussion about, oh, hey, we should have complex bans more frequently. We should, like... But then, like, there's, like, the counter-argument of, oh, well, this is a slippery slope, because if you set this precedent, then you can say, oh, well, you know, Kyogre, the mon that has really strong water moves? Well, how about we, like,
Ban
not
water
let it use
moves,
water
diet.
moves? Yeah, like, I mean, that... Like, and it's like, that's a bit of a...
What are complex bans?
Complex bans are essentially a form of ban where you ban a very specific either ban a specific combination of traits, or you ban a
So is it
or
like...
you ban like something
It's
more
like
unconventional.
It's like advanced OU with like not passing speed boosts
Yes,
with
that is a complex ban.
baton pass. Ah,
That is a complex ban.
Speed pass is GCQU. In advanced, in OU, you can only have, like, you can have as many baton passers as you want, but only one of them can have something that can boost stats, and they can only have, like, one of those. So, like,
Yeah.
you can't run like Swords Dance Speed Boost Ninjask, or like Swords Dance
Yeah,
Agility
you also
Smooth.
have something like in Gen 5, you could, at one point, you
Swift
couldn't...
swim.
Yeah, Swiftness was Drizzle or like Sand Rush Excadrill on Sand teams, which is
But
why
the
Rain teams started using Excadrill.
oh yeah, I
Yeah,
forgot
the
about
funny
Dex
thing
Cut.
is though, that like tiering decision of like banning Swift Swim and Sand Rush like contingent like on the contingency of them being on, you know, certain teams is actively like a very like controversial decision. And it still is to this day from what I understand, but it hasn't been reverted because it's kind of similar to the Volcarona ban in Gen 9. It's just been found that, yeah, honestly, the metagame is just better off like this. But, like, at the same time, I'd say also the complexity of those bans was just, like, greatly reduced by the fact that, didn't they, like, upgrade it to Swift Swim and Sand Rush outright? Without
Yeah.
any other contingencies? Yeah. Which is,
sorry.
like, a much
Well,
cleaner
no,
ban.
you can still use Swift Swim in OU, I believe, unless that changed since last time I played.
I am like 99% sure that you can't do that.
I mean, no, because
Hold on.
they banned Sand Rush outright because Rain teams were using Excadrill, which is also... Which, like, if they banned Sand Rush but kept the complex ban on Swift Swim, that would be
Hold on,
really
I'm gonna
weird.
check now.
I feel like Swift Swim was also just outright banned. I feel like
Hold on. I'm about to check.
So I forgot to talk about Dex Cut because I think it was you who asked me about
Yes.
Dex Cut in VGC.
Yes.
So Dex Cut in VGC is interesting because a lot of the Pokemon that have been cut weren't viable in VGC in the first place, but I've mainly only been playing for this generation. I played some of last generation, but I know some Pokemon that were cut from the Pokedex that we would have loved to have in some other regulations. So, Regulation B was dominated by Fluttermane, by King Gambit, but also in that regulation specifically, Tyranitar was really good. Now, some people would have loved Excadrill in Regulation B, but DLC 2 wasn't out yet at the time. Excadrill in Regulation B would have been insane because it deals with Fluttermane, it deals with King Gambit. To some extent, it deals with like other Pokemon like the Iron Moth teams that were good at the time. But also, even right now, people really, really want Tapu Fini back specifically because Tapu Fini would be insane into the meta right now.
We got everything of what you said right, yup.
I actually would say about Tapu Fini, it's what I find interesting is I don't know, maybe this is just like I might be just like having like an uninformed stance here because I haven't really played VGC very much. I like follow it, but I don't really like play it. It seems almost like dex cuts feel kind of arbitrary. Like I don't really know if there's any like rhyme or reason to it because like Incineroar like kind of like infamous and people like at least from what I understand like Wolf Glick for example doesn't seem to like Incineroar, for example. I'm not sure what your stance on Incineroar is, but like Incineroar has...
I like Incineroar. Incineroar isn't inherently broken. It's not a broken... Yes, it's overtuned because it now has access to both Parting Shot and Knockoff at the same time, because it didn't have that last gen. It's only ever had either Knockoff or Parting Shot, never both at the same time until now. But it's not broken. What's broken is something like Fluttermane, where its best counter is itself. Its only counter is itself. But Incineroar stops what could be broken from being broken.
Yeah, so basically,
it's almost like
it's Thunderous Therian in every other gen.
And is that why, like, the usage ban that you mentioned earlier, is that why part of why it just kind of went awry? Because
yes.
A lot of the mons that were, like, high usage were very good at, they were highly used because of the fact that they had so much roll compression, including being able to check these broken Pokemon. Yeah, that
so,
makes
like,
sense.
That was a big six. It was Porygon Z, Dracozolt, Clefairy, Talonflame, Primarina, and Urshifu Dark. Those six together created the single most, like, centralized format team we've ever seen.
Yeah, jeez.
Because
even more than Chalk.
With all the big stuff gone, there was nothing that could check those.
Even more than Chalk.
Even more than what?
The Chalk.
Oh, Chalk.
The Gen 6
Chalk was something. I wasn't playing at the time of Chalk. Both Chalk and that series where stuff was banned, they were both incredibly centralized.
Dang, indeed.
And then let me introduce you to RBYOU.
RBYOU.
Where you have to...
Everyone's favorite
if you don't
game.
run any of the big three on your team sucks.
Yeah, unironically, what's really funny is RBYOU, I'm like kind of like whatever on, but like RBY lower tiers are based. Like RBYUU is such a fun tier.
Didn't Lapras recently
you
get
think that if
unbanned
you played
from
during the Lapras era.
Well, I
Good
know.
thing the
but
Lapras
that's
era is
why...
over.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, hey,
Didn't
no more
Lapras
Lapras.
recently
hey.
get unbanned?
Oh yeah, the all of the banned mons in NU just got unbanned.
Oh.
Yeah, they just unbanned Golduck, Poliwrath, Poliwhirl, and Raichu. Did they unban Raichu? I know about the waters, but I don't know about Raichu.
Why'd they unban like Poliwhirl and Poliwrath? Weren't they like really oppressive?
Yeah, they were. I'm taken aback by this information.
Yeah, what? That's like weird. I mean,
I don't know. I guess they want to test them again because the bans are really recent. I just hope they never even think about unbanning Lapras. Like, oh my god, that thing was... Like, Lapras and Yu-Gi-Oh! Single-handedly made all of the water types in the tier terrible.
Hang on, I need to see something.
No, Raichu
Yeah.
is Yu-Yu. Raichu, they didn't unban Raichu because apparently it's just Yu-Yu. Like, tiered Yu-Yu.
Oh, it was Advanced UU. It wasn't, it was Advanced UU. Oh, wait, no, RBY UU has unbanned Lapras, November last year.
No! Why?
No, I think that's like...
That has to be like somewhat dated. I hope it is.
It is.
Yeah, it's dated. Lapras
It's
is still
November.
Yu-Gi-Oh!
Never mind. Never mind. It was November
They banned it
2022.
again.
Because
Okay.
they
Oh, in
unbanned-
2022. Yeah, that's super.
Yeah, they
old.
unbanned Lapras, and then it got banned because of Sing sets, and then once they banned Sleep, they brought Lapras back, and then it and Hypno were just absolutely terrifying, because Lead Hypno was better without Sleep, and then Lapras just single-handedly turned the tier on its head, and then they banned Lapras again, and I think
Honestly,
they unbanned Sleep.
A mon that I have a lot of fun with in RBYUU is absolutely Tentacruel. Tentacruel is so fun. And it's a really, it's so fascinating. It's the most interesting incarnation of Tentacruel competitively, in my opinion.
Tentacruel is so weird, because it's like the best mon in OU, but in Yu-Gi-Oh, but it sucks in OU, while like there's NU mons that are pretty decent in OU.
I mean that's part of the reason, like, why I often take I think people should take usage tiers with a grain of salt when it comes to viability, because all usage does is categorize the power levels of Pokemon, really. Because there are Pokemon that have a certain combination of traits to carve out a niche in certain formats. Like, again, I mean, if you go to like Barraskewda is a very cut and dry example. Like in OU, it was far and away the best Rain Swift Swim user because of close combat and its a natural speed tier outside of Rain. But when you don't,
Yeah.
during the times where it isn't peaking in usage, it was just kind of mid in RU. Whereas you had stuff I'm trying to think of some Cobalion in UU, which is top tier in UU in Gen 8, and a lot of UUs in general, honestly. And it's just
I
kind
know
of
why. I know why they dropped the waters. I know why they dropped the waters. Venusaur and Victory Bell are in you now.
Oh, yeah, okay, never mind. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's fair enough. If they just did it because they wanted to,
That would have been really silly.
I would be fittingly Worry Whirl right now.
I love the Worry Whirl emote so much.
Me too.
And they dropped Aerodactyl as well.
Dang.
Which, oh crap, this means that Seadra's probably gonna fall to PU. No!
What's wrong with Seadra? What's wrong with Seadra? He exists.
Well, I mean, not in a world where Poliwrath and Poliwhirl exist.
Yeah, I mean, that would do it.
And then it's probably gonna definitely outclass, Seeking and ZU, or NPU.
What does Seeking even do? I mean,
it's an agility sweeper.
Ah.
Does it get Sword Stance? Does it get Sword Stance?
No, it gets agility and it spams Surf.
Wait, I thought it got Sword Stance in later gens. Does it just not get Sword Stance? Wait, I don't know anything about Seeking. You're gonna have to forgive me.
All I know about Seeking is that it gets Mega Horn in Gen 3 and has a niche in Oovers because it can Mega Horn the psychic types with Swift Swim.
Okay, yeah, I got Sword Stance later. I'm glad I'm not misremembering that.
Sword Stance is so funny in RBY because hardly anything good gets it.
But hey, I mean anything that. I mean, but then Sword Stance plus Hyper Beam just kind of makes you have a niche somewhere.
Wait. Didn't Kingler do that?
Scyther is weird because Scyther is the fastest Sword Stance user. It's the only one with over 100 speed, but it still sucks. Because its coverage is terrible
against Kingler.
I remember hearing the Kingler did Sword Stance stuff.
Kingler is probably the best Sword Stance user, yes, because it's got a decent speed tier compared to other.
No, the best Sword Stance user is Sandslash.
Is it?
Sandslash.
Well, the best Pokemon that learns Sword Stance is Victory Bell, but it doesn't use it. The best Sword Stance users are Kingler and Sandslash.
I would argue
Tentacruel gets Sword Stance. That's my man.
What?
I've used Sword Stance Tentacruel before, and it's weird because it's the fastest Pokemon that gets both Sword Stance and a partial trapping move. So it can do some stuff where it can whittle things down with the Wrap and then finish them off with Hyper Beam or Hydro Pump. Mm-hmm. The only other Pokemon that can do this is Pinsir, which is slower.
Yeah. Actually, interestingly, didn't Kingler and Pinsir have a? I'm pretty sure they had a niche in OU because of the combination of just Sword Stance.
They still
and
do
Hyper
have
Beam.
a niche in OU.
And then Kingler has the Water Stab to deal with with Rhydon that checks Hyper Beam.
Yeah,
the main Sword Stancers in OU. The main Sword Stancers in OU are Venusaur because it has more bulk than Victory Bell and it has Sleep Powder, and Razor Leaf to deal with Rhydon. Kingler hits the hardest, it straight up Okos Chansey with Hyper Beam, and it has Crabhammer to hit Rhydon and Golem. Sandslash has a T-Wave immunity and Stab Earthquake, and Pinsir has Bind to whittle things down.
And Submission if you want to be suicidal.
Well, I mean that's your best option for Chansey.
I just looked.
I wholeheartedly do believe that Tangela does have a niche in OU, but I don't think it's going to be doing anything with Sword Stance anytime soon. Even though it does have bind, like you could do some like Sword Stance bind shenanigans, but like I think it's better off with like dual status with Growth and Mega Drain.
I mean, yeah, but also consider bind Sword Stance.
That sounds pretty fun.
You know who else can do that? Bell, and it doesn't even use Sword Stance.
You know who else?
You know who else likes to use bind and Sword Stance?
My mom.
I wonder, did anything drop to PU? I'm checking.
Terrakion.
True.
How did this happen?
It was so
But Iron
funny to me
Boulder.
alright, so first PU wave, ban wave, of course there was Terrakion. It was so funny to me how once it ended up in NU, it was not in the first ban wave. It was like, we saw the announcement to this Mogon channel say, oh, there's this and that ban from NU, and everyone was like, there is no Terrakion.
Terrakion
Where
is
is
now
Terrakion?
in RBYPU. How does this affect the metagame?
Oh, it would
no.
probably destroy it. I mean, yeah, it's a fighting type,
Duh.
but like, there's no.
No, close combat didn't exist yet.
It
Close
didn't
combat
Oh
exist.
crap, you're right.
yet.
It would have to.
It would have
did
submission.
Terrakion didn't even learn doesn't learn submission either. But then again, submission is a TM in RBY, which means that Terrakion would probably get it.
Hang on, let me see.
It would just
let me
have too
actually
much
see.
attack.
Wait, it doesn't get like submission, or it gets double
But it
kick,
would-
I guess.
It
It would
prob-
probably get submission because submission is a TM
Yeah.
in RBY.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess.
even if
but-
it didn't, it would probably run mono normal coverage, and it would probably still be broken, honestly.
Like it,
Yeah,
it
I
gets
mean, it does
sword
get
stance.
Sword Stance.
Like
It gets Hyper Beam and Sword Stance.
Yeah.
It'll.
And like, it's got like around 20% crit rate.
and it's got Rock Slide. It can run that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah,
are we
Terrakion
talking
would
about
definitely be
Terrakion
really
and
strong.
RBYP?
And Terrakion would probably actually just be OU because it has a normal resistance alongside being able to hit normal super effectively. I mean, it would suck versus the psychics, but like something.
I mean, it's
faster
Sword
than
Stance and
some of
Hyper Beam
them.
was that speed tier and submission.
It would be like a decent lead, right?
I'm sure it would be pretty good as a lead. Yeah.
But then again, it gets outsped by Starmie, and Starmie is like the lead.
Womp
Yeah.
womp.
Womp.
I mean,
And it loses to Jinx too, which is another
well,
common
no,
theme.
it does not lose to Jinx. It hits it super
No,
effective.
yeah, no, Terrakion's faster, and Jinx's defense is like
Oh yeah, I
Wet-
forgot.
it's
Ice
like
is
wet
weak to rock.
cardboard. It's
I
like-
keep forgetting that because you like
It's also-
that hardly ever comes into play.
Yeah, it would do.
Honestly-
it would do good into Jinx. It would do fine into Chansey, and like it would try to avoid hypnosis against Gengar.
yeah, and plus also its defense stat. Even if Terrakion didn't have Rock Slide, Jinx's defense stat is like weaker than wet paper. So
Hey,
Yeah.
don't insult wet paper.
Jinx
like
has the Jinx has the physical bulk of a wet fart.
Hold on. Jinx. Oh, 35. What is this?
no, it's so bad. It's like actually Kartana levels of like bad. It's insane.
No, don't insult
like it
Katana.
I'm talking about
it
like
hardly
Kartana spit
ever
off.
comes into play in RBY because like who leads a physical attacker in RBY?
Me, that too.
Like all the common
Well,
leads are
I'm
special
sure
attackers.
Yeah.
everybody would if Terrakion was there.
Everyone, nobody knows how like leads work when they first play like old gens. So like when you play low ladder, you see a lot of lead Tauros. And then,
Oh
and
yeah,
then you just
no, that
imme-
happened to me once too. Because I was being I was like, okay, I had Tauros because I had Tauros. Of course, I had Tauros. And then
I mean-
I go into a game. Hold on, I don't get to choose the lead.
Yeah,
You kinda
it just immediately. It's a horrible lead because it just immediately gets parried, and then you're at a disadvantage for the whole game
Hey, I mean, it
because you
doesn't get
you
parried.
lose the Tauros to do.
I mean,
It doesn't get parried against.
it's a pretty
against
good-
Jinx.
it's a pretty good Thunder Wave bait for Chansey.
That's actually a good point.
Just lead Starmie at that point.
Yeah.
It's Starmie at that. I mean, like, hey, Tauros is a good lead against Jinx. Can't go wrong.
I suppose.
If you want to be technical, I actually don't know if Hyper Beam goes, but I'm sure it does.
It
like,
would.
honestly,
It should.
It
I would be
absolutely
shocked if-
does.
Hold on, let me calc that.
Oh, I'm gonna calc it faster than you.
you're gonna calc it faster.
I'm not even gonna try and count.
Hyper Beam is not an OCO. It does a minimum 85%.
It does
Wow, that's tragic.
okay, but it does maximum 100.9.
It has a
Okay, just get
7.7% chance to OCO.
Just get the 7.9% chance, Forehead.
Well, actually, it's a 20+% because it can crit.
Oh, right, because...
Oh yeah, you're
there's
right. Yeah, Tauros has like the crit rate of the gods. The fact that
The
Tauros
crit
can just rob games you absolutely shouldn't win because of crits is so funny.
Which is not like
We should
it's
probably-
not even like a rub because 20% over the course of a game, you're gonna get
like-
that multiple times. Of course you are.
It's like Tauros doesn't really have any safe switches. Like even the safest switch, Cloister, gets absolutely demolished by crits and body slam paralysis.
Honestly, the thing about crits and the speed determining crits is like on paper it sounds really cool, but speed is just so fundamentally powerful in Pokemon that it's just like, does it really need that?
Yeah, you wanna see
What if?
you wanna see 40% crit rate Regieleki.
Oh, that's fine. I remember like this I don't remember. I think it was like this pet mod that actually like has every single Pokemon in RBY. And yeah, I think like it was like Slacking, like Regigigas and
Oh
Regieleki
yeah,
were
because
all
those
like
don't get
super broken.
abilities.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you could look at it like they should still do because like in Legend Arceus, they removed abilities, yet they still felt the need to make Regigigas absolute.
Poor
ass.
Regigigas. Also, the funny thing about Slacking in an RBY context is that it's actually even more broken than you'd anticipate. Not only because of the fact it's a normal type in Gen 1, but it also gets Amnesia and, like, insane coverage.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
Damn, it
It's-
gets
it's
amnesia,
actually-
that's right.
That's not, something I hear a lot is that Psychic is the best type in RBY. No,
it's
it's
normal.
normal.
Normal by a long
is
shot.
Definitely the best.
I like, our Psychic
I mean,
was more egregious, but
it's not-
normal is just, like, it's just so, like, overtuned by circumstance. Like,
Farigiraf is dropped in RBY OU. It is a normal psychic type. How
Farigiraf?
does this affect the
It
metagame?
would go hard. It would go really hard.
it would be really, really good.
I wonder
Actually, I
how
don't know.
Girafarig would do, actually.
Does Girafarig get Amnesia?
Girafarig would have a higher crit rate than Farigiraf because Girafarig is faster.
It does get Amnesia. It does get Amnesia.
Ooh.
Oh boy. Oh, for Girafarig for Ubers, let's go.
Let's go,
Girafarig for RBY Ubers, bro.
I find it weird how Frostlass is technically in Ubers in Gen 4, yet they just still keep it as UUBL. But when you check its OU analysis, it's like, you can't use this in OU, go F yourself.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like, I mean, like bans by technicality are so like weirdly common because of how like banning like abilities can sometimes just like work. Like I think it like one of the most funny situations I can think of is Articuno in BDSP, where literally both of its abilities just got banned, and it was just like okay.
Yeah, I really do
Yeah.
think they should like actually raise Frostlass to Ubers because it would be funny.
Yeah,
Wait,
and it's just like
I know Frostlass.
and I think it's
not
really
Frostlass,
interesting
I know
again,
Articuno
like
has Snow
how
Cloak.
these
What's
bans
the other
occur
ability?
really does just like come down to like the specific circumstances of the Pokemon, as well as how like the philosophy of what makes a competitive or uncompetitive ability or Pokemon. Like the definition of uncompetitive can be really different across people. They can see it as like it has to be like egregiously broken. It could be like unhealthy for the metagame. I personally subscribe more so to the idea. I personally subscribe to unhealthiness as being a good like metric for me personally when it comes to my banning philosophy, because it's like I was in the camp of Gliscor being banned, for example. Even though it wasn't directly broken per se. Like you could feasibly wall it or beat it, but like its effect on the metagame holistically was unhealthy because of the trends that it forced and the gameplay loops that its presence alone encouraged. And those like ripple effects are a very real and common reason to consider bans in a lot of in a lot of generations and a lot of tiers, and I think that's like a very interesting thing because and also very important because a lot of people do think this like, okay, it has to be egregiously broken, it has to be. That's why like sometimes people like look at things like Volcarona, for example, and are like, why did this get banned? Us, corrupt the OU council, like without even like
assassinate
like
Finchinator
those
or
ripple
whatever.
effects are just no, literally, like if you go on Twitter, like there are just so many crybabies. It's like actually so funny, and like
There
Finch,
were so many people
like,
being like,
Regieleki-
Someone's
Volcarona
gonna end
will
up
fix the
putting.
meta.
Yeah, I
Someone's
mean,
gonna
like
end up
Volcarona
putting-
does weirdly have some positive benefits because of its typing, but like in Flame Body to some extent.
Yeah.
But like,
But
But,
it's
like,
not
that's
worth
why
it.
Someone's gonna
people-
put.
but that's why
Someone's gonna
people
put
why
rat
people were
poison
like,
in the chicken wings Finch normally posts.
yeah, and that's why like a lot of people were like, kind of lukewarm about Volcarona's ban because it did have some like healthy qualities. But I mean, the same thing can be said about Magirna.
We should probably think about
because,
wrapping
like,
this
its
up. We've
typing
been
is
recording
super
for
good.
over
it's
an
I
hour.
really like
splashful.
Assault Vest Magirna. Like Assault Vest
AV
Magirna was
Magirna?
really, really.
I love AV Magirna. I also really
Yeah.
liked like the paid split sets too. Those were really fun. And then, but unfortunately, the dual dance sets are just way
They
too
were
much.
too much. Yeah.
So it's
To
just
me-
like,
Why
and it's
can't we
unfortunate.
just use Klefki in OU?
Yeah,
To
like
me-
honestly, get rid of just if you got rid of like tricks and stored power from its and draining kiss from its arsenal, I honestly think it would be an incredibly healthy presence in OU.
Hashtag Gen 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Gen 7, I love Magirna in Gen 7. Magirna in Gen 7's awesome. Like just nuke Z moves and it feels pretty like balanced for what it is. Like
Yeah. To me, competitive is like
We should
how
probably wrap
much
this up,
are
so
you in
we've been
control
recording for over
when
an
you're
hour.
on this mon with a team with like basic fundamentals. Like if
Okay.
you have a team that's like fundamentally sound, you have like hazards, you have speed, you have power, you have decent switchings into into most of the meta. If you have a team that's like that, how much are you in control around this mon? To me, that's like a good metric to see how competitive something is.
Yeah.
It's like
skill
if-
expression, really.
I had someone tell me like a few weeks ago, like when I was telling him that something was uncompetitive, like as a reason for why it was banned. He told me that's a word that competitive players throw around a lot.
Yeah, it
And
can be
that
a
it's
buzzword.
Yeah, it's a weird topic.
Yeah, it's like it's a buzzword. But like the thing about saying is, that's why I personally like to say unhealthy as opposed to uncompetitive, because the word uncompetitive can definitely have like very like buzzword implications, because again, like the idea of what's competitive and what's fair, the philosophy is so different across a lot of different people. Whereas unhealthy to me feels like it's a metric that's a little bit more like agreeable, or something
Yeah.
that could be more like reasonably hashed out. Whereas
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to convince somebody to completely change their philosophy on what makes something competitive. I mean,
All I know
don't
is
think
that if I was a
That's fair.
council member for a day, accuracy dropping moves would be banned.
unfortunately,
I mean,
they
it's not
are
like
just
you go on. It's not like you go on the council that you get to make a ban like that.
I mean, if you saw the council chat, honestly, the thing about the council is like the council chats are actually like very, very like loose and very like they're a little haphazard sometimes. They're a little, but they can also be silly too. Like at the end of the day, council members and are all people. We all like to play the game. We all have a good time, and we just kind of we're just like you guys, frankly. Like
Does Finch
it's-
post his food in the chat?
I mean, I'm not Finch, but I could post the crumbs of the cookie that I ate before the podcast. That would be something.
I ate a bagel.
I had
That's dope.
I had like a coffee and a cookie because I just
I don't
don't have
like
any food
coffee.
here.
I prefer tea.
Anyway, you said that we needed to wrap up now, right?
Yeah, we've been
Yeah,
recording for
we
over an hour.
we have around an hour. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Okay, so now time to get to the real topic. Top 10 best Pokemon. Number 10, Venusaur. Number 9,
My favorite
Blastoise.
My favorite Pokemon.
Number 8, Hitmonchan. Number 7, Rayquaza. Number 6, Arceus. Number 5, Typhlosion.
And that's it for
Number
today,
sound like
folks. Thanks for
Churro.
watching.
The way you're